How much longer is the elephant in the room going to remain Alexander Isak?
The ridiculous arguments being advanced is one-sided tosh. That would, of course, make the argument totally redundant because we know it's a crock. I mean, what the hell is going on? Who do these people think they are? It's outrageous. It's an understanding, mate. What you understood, you little runt, was what was put on your contract. But the way we're characterising it is if this guy's just chopped liver, which no doubt this little squirt is. And I sincerely hope that he gets his mind concentrated. Someone knocks on your door, wants to buy your house. He doesn't decide what it's worth.
Yeah.
You decide what it's worth.
What a night it was at St James's Park. Simon, this had the lot. I mean, the absolute lot.
It was always going to, wasn't it?
It was always going to. A phenomenal support from the home fans.
Indeed.
A fairly noisy, audible support from the travelling supporters. They put them away up in the gods at St James's Park.
They always do that, don't they?
Fans.
Yeah, they always do, yeah.
But Liverpool could be heard at the end because it was to be a dazzling cameo for young Rio in Gumoa. And we'll get to that. But Simon, 2-0 up, then 2-2. Newcastle clawed their way back into it, having lost a man in Anthony Gordon.
Yeah.
Taken to the edge by both Bournemouth and Newcastle. What are we seeing from Liverpool thus far then? They get the job done in the end, the 100th minute or so. Are we looking at the vulnerable champions or the defiant champions?
I don't think we're looking at either. I think we're looking at teams that they're playing against that are, first of all, playing Newcastle on a Monday night, underneath the floodlights, in a game that has a whole raft of narratives behind it, and a game that's been littered over the years with challenges. This time last year, Newcastle came back and drew 3-3, didn't they? Or was it the other way around? Can't remember. It was a 3-3 draw. And so, in this instance, you're not surprised. Newcastle are a good side. And so are Bournemouth. Bournemouth last year, to me, were their manager's outstanding. They've had their playing squad pillaged by the biggest clubs in Europe to tell you how good their players are. One of them playing last night who didn't cover himself in glory for Liverpool for the second goal, or the first goal that Newcastle scored. So I'm not surprised these teams are, and as the defending champions, life is always made much more difficult because everyone amps up the intensity based upon a legacy club. That's the Premier League champions, that's the poster boys of the Premier League because they're the champions coming to town, and Liverpool are finding ways to win. And that's what you do. When you're the champions, you find ways to win, and that's what they're doing. So I don't know whether it's defiant or it's vulnerable, or you have to give a lot of credit to the opposition. You have to take each game in context. First game of the season, Liverpool would always be tuning up. And so Bournemouth coming to town that really do play with high intensity was always going to be a challenging game, despite the fact on paper people go, oh, it's Bournemouth. People still think it's Bournemouth. People still have this precursor, this asterisk in front of a game when Bournemouth come to town. And I bet you in certain people's minds, they still have that precursor or that asterisk in front of it when Brighton come to town or when Brentford come to town. But these teams are not mugs. That's why their best players are being nicked by the visionaries of the sport, the guys that are in a position with the legacy clubs to be able to take players from other clubs because of the financial situation that other clubs find themselves in via PSR.
Now that we've seen what Liverpool are about, though, even this early in the season, I think there are signs maybe that they can be got at. Having said that, Arne Slot post-match, when it looked like it was going to be 2-2, the youngster won it for Liverpool. And Slot was asked, was this a sign of a champion's performance?
Last thing I think about at this moment, if I'm honest, winning away at Newcastle, then you definitely need to have quality, especially in an atmosphere like this, and not football quality, because that's not what we showed today, apart from the last goal we scored. That looked a little bit like what I see on a daily basis on the training ground, but to have the mentality to fight here in such a hostile stadium. That definitely is something you also need if you want to compete in the end. Winning is something else, but at least competing, you definitely need to have this mentality. And
the watchword, I think, this morning, though, Simon, is youngsters. I mean, when you look at it, Rio Ngumoa, I'd heard about this kid, 100-minute winner from a boy who's just 16. And at the weekend there, a dazzling Doman cameo for Arsenal at 15. Max Doman, born in Chelmsford in Essex. Rio was born in Newham, right here, of course, in England. I mean, when you look at it, has it been a weekend that if you're good enough, you're old enough?
It's always been the case, though, isn't it? I mean, what's great and refreshing is that they're two English players. I mean, Dowman is a great... I mean, I've been raving about him for 2 years. so it's not a secret to me. He isn't strong enough at this moment in time, so you saw that a couple of times. He gets on the ball and he attacks, and he's very forthright. I'm not sure he's a winger. I think he's probably number 10. We'll see about that as it develops. But he's got all the hallmarks of a player that's going to build and build and build and build and build. It's nice to see young Arsenal. These are two sides that have very good players in them. Very good senior pros that enable environments where young players can come in and blossom and see the culture and the standards and allow their talent to shine. And they'll come in and out. You know, they're not going to be mainstays. I mean, I heard the hysteria from Jamie Carragher last night about how he's got to be in the team and how he's going to be this. And Thierry Henry just poured he's too young, it's too early.
Yeah.
Nice talent, good finish, composed, brilliant finish from the Liverpool player. And a good penalty that Dortmund got, and attacking the fullback, and going at him. Was interesting to watch because he's an exciting player. But these are young players that will bump and they'll have their ups and downs. But it's very reassuring to see young talent, albeit coming through in the biggest clubs, because it's easy to often create talent inside the biggest clubs. What's not so easy is to find a pathway. So it's interesting to see these younger players are finding a pathway.
Yeah.
And Dalman's been dipped in. I don't think he'll be a regular feature. And as I say, I don't think at 15 years of age he's strong enough at this moment in time. And why would he be? But technically, he's got all the attributes. And it's exciting to see technically gifted young British players coming
absolutely.
through. Yeah.
They've got to be handled correctly, though, haven't they? By the ownership at the club, by the clubs they're at.
They've always got to be
handled. The kids, Diamond, 15.
Well, they've always got to be handled properly. They've always, because the fortunate and unfortunate thing about modern football is that the moment you poke your head above the parapet and show one modicum of ability, vroom, everybody will be on you. Everyone will want something from you. Everyone will see an opportunity via you. Everyone will be trying to get into you. And so it's very important that they're grounded, they're kept away from sections of the media as much as they possibly can be while they learn their trade, kept away from other influences outside of football. Well, they're going to get agents. That's a reality. Much as I don't like it, as much as I think that the agents are the getting between the wall and the wallpaper, it's a reality. It's about how the club can manage the young man's expectations at the same time as finding a pathway for him to develop at the right times. We obviously had the controversy 20-odd years ago where Rooney didn't like the way he was being handled by David Moyes in terms of going in the team, not being put in the team on a regular basis. But again, I go back to the central point. I mean, Arsenal looked really good at times on the weekend, really, really good. And the pace of their game stepped up, actually, when certain players went off.
Yeah.
So, Nweri coming on, who's a good player, Dalman coming on, who's a good young player, are all good signs for Arsenal.
A lot to get through this morning, and obviously we're going to invite calls on from Liverpool fans and from Newcastle fans as well for a whole variety of reasons. Do you know, Anthony Gordon, I met him in Germany. Met him a number of times, chatting to him at the Carabao Cup earlier this year. He didn't feature in it. Lovely lad. That's by the by. At 24 years of age, is there still an immaturity to Anthony? In his last 14 matches, no goals, no assists, 2 red cards. It cost Newcastle heavily last night.
I mean that. Yes, I mean it's like asking when Zinedine Zidane headbutts somebody in the World Cup final. Was there an immaturity about Zinedine Zidane? There's certain things about players at certain times. I know some of the things that were said to Zidane in that game might have been the provocator for that, but notwithstanding that, you still have to keep your head about you while others are losing theirs, right? Anthony Gordon plays on emotion. He plays on high intensity. He puts himself about. And he was, if you look at the movement before he laid into Virgil van Dijk, he was there, he was here, he was chasing the ball down. So he was really keyed up for the game.
Oh, sure.
He gets motivated, he gets into it. When I remember him as a young player, I remember him doing an interview after one of the games. I think he scored against Man United, and he gave some interview where he probably said things that he possibly shouldn't have said because it made him look like he was a bit previous, a bit cocky.
Yeah.
And he's not. He's just, he believes in himself, which I think is a prerequisite of being someone in any walk of life. If you don't believe in yourself, no one's going to believe in you. And B, he's focused on what he's doing. And he left a bit on Virgil van Dijk. And yes, he was a bit over keyed up.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a determinant of whether he's mature enough to play for a big club, or he will feel that he let his teammates down, but I think he let them down for the right reason, rather than some act of stupid petulance, rather than kicking a ball away.
Fair enough. I didn't think you'd go in that direction this morning.
He's a good player. I mean, he's a good player. He's a good player. I think he let the team down for the right reason yesterday, not for the wrong reason.
It was reported Newcastle co-owner Jamie Rubin, somebody who's spoken on this show before, and a PIF delegation spoke to Alexander Isak at his home yesterday before the game in an attempt to convince him to stay at the club. So where is that at this morning? How much longer is the elephant in the room going to remain Alexander Isak? Regards Newcastle United, of course. Played 2, drawn 1, lost 1. The loss coming in the 100th minute, albeit last night at home to Liverpool. 10-man Newcastle. But where's it all going regarding Alexander Isak? As I mentioned at the top of the show, it was reported last night that Newcastle co-owner Jamie Rubin and a PIF delegation, Saudi delegation, spoke to Isak at his home yesterday before the game in an attempt, it was being reported, to convince him to stay at the club. So can Newcastle call it case closed this time next week once the window itself closes? Or will rehabilitation be a whole new challenge? Eddie Howe spoke about the Isak situation as much as he knew it.
I've not been party to talks on this for a long time now, so I've been preparing the team, giving all my energy to the players that want to play for Newcastle. I think that's where my energy is best put at the moment. So we want clarity, we want to move forward, we want the sort of narrative to change, because we're in the start of the season now. We're into the action, and we've got to get results, and we've got to try and focus on what we can control. The quality of Alex, I think he would have made a difference in the 2 games. I don't think there's any denying that. But that said, the team has functioned really well, and I think the performance of the players and the team in the 2 games doesn't happen without every part of the team functioning well.
We like Eddie whenever he speaks, Simon, but should we take it very much at face value that it's above his pay grade now, and that Eddie would not at any stage at this particular moment be involved?
Well, he may not be party to the discussions, but he'll certainly be privy to them, won't he? I mean, he's not going to be kept out on an island on his own where he doesn't know what's going on with one of the members of his squad. It doesn't happen like that. He might not be front and centre with the player, if that is indeed the case. What he doesn't want to do is keep answering questions about Isak, because he can't give any more information. So he's trying to remove himself from the conversation as much as he possibly can and get on with the subject matter in hand, which is, I'd rather talk about the game. I'd rather not talk about this because it's not getting me anywhere in this conversation. But I would think he's perfectly clued up with what's going on with the player. Why they're tolerating it, I don't know. Why they're tolerating a player deciding that he doesn't want to play, it's outrageous. It is outrageous, whichever way you look at it, whichever mentality you want to look through, whichever prism you want to look at it through. Somebody determining that because they can't get their own way, or there's a dispute about what was understood or not understood, can just not turn up to do their job. Is outrageous. No other walk of life. And there'll be a group of people, a section of people in society that's suggesting that somehow this player has his right to behave this way. The best way to leave a football club, indeed that's what you want to do, is to leave it properly and to put your transfer request in, to make your position clear, but in the meantime make yourself available for the job that you're being paid to do. And it's not a case of idealist, oh, it's not how the real world works, Simon, because I'm a real world person. It's what people are prepared to tolerate. It's what people are prepared to accept.
I take it then you wouldn't have been round at Isak's house yesterday?
No, I wouldn't have been around his house, but I would have been dealing with him if indeed that we are led to believe that there's been very little conversations had with the player besides the so-called people that gave him promises that no one will ever name and no one will ever tell, because that would of course make the argument totally redundant, because we know it's a crock. We know that no doubt in anybody's mind that Isak will have told whoever he wanted to tell via his ghastly little agent that he wanted to leave. But saying you want to leave and someone from the club saying, yeah mate, leave on your own terms, are 2 different things, which is the ridiculous argument that's being advanced. It's one-sided tosh. And I sincerely hope that he gets his mind concentrated. And if there is to be sold to Liverpool, I hope that Newcastle get precisely what they want out of it, because that's how it should play out.
Are you surprised that Isak seemingly is digging his heels in as much as he is?
Well, he put himself in a position, hasn't he? He's decided that he wants to do something. Footballers are not weaklings. You know, to go out and be a professional footballer at an elite level, you have to have a certain mindset and a certain set of character about you to be able to perform at the level that you perform at. A, to become a professional footballer, and then B, to become an elite one, which no doubt this little squirt is. But the fact of the matter is his behaviour right now is poor. It's not, you know, it appalls me that this pathetic union of theirs say nothing about it, because it's fundamentally wrong. And when they eventually alight upon a position that contracts don't mean anything, and that hurts the lower tier of football, because it won't hurt the top players, it won't hurt the top football clubs to some extent, that player contracts aren't worth anything. It'll hurt the guys further down the pyramid when clubs can turn around and say, you ain't got a contract anymore, they're not worth anything anymore, and the transfer market is being brought to its knees because of constant challenges left, right and centre, and maybe vested interest will see past that, and it won't be. But what we've got at this moment in time is you've got people like Wissa at Brentford. I mean, what the hell is going on? Who do these people think they are? We've got a contract. And this nonsense about what I said, what I understood. What you understood, you little runt, was what was put on your contract. And what your agent understood was what was put on your contract. And you wouldn't ask for an understanding. Like I said the other day, you wouldn't want an understanding of, well, here's your contract. We're not going to write it down. We're not going to paper it. We're not going to ask you to sign it. It's an understanding, mate. No, you'd say, well, that's not a contract. Oh, but now you're prepared to bank your whole future and your direction of travel on an understanding. It's utter balderdash. And people won't call it out and they won't say it for what it is, and they all make excuses for it. And football gives its own orthodoxy about, oh, he's had his head turned. So what?
Let's say you were round at Isak's house yesterday, that you were, as a member of the Newcastle ownership, round at his gaff with the PIF delegation with you.
Too little, too late. Should have done it weeks ago.
What would you have said to Isak?
Well, it doesn't matter what I'd have said at that instance, because what should have been said was much earlier in the chain.
Which is what?
Well, we are
Get your tail into training.
Do your job, son. Do your job, or find out the consequences of what it means. You know, we have the ability to set you metaphorically on fire. We have the economic wherewithal and the strength of belief in the values of our football club to tell you what you're going to do. It's very simple. You can do it the hard way, or you can do it the easy way. And the easy way will be to operate at a higher level than the one that you're operating at now. Be under no illusion. Be under no illusion who you think you are and where you fit in the food chain. It's not the Bob Lord mentality of you're a serf and I'm the land baron. It is it's an equitable exchange between a player that signed a contract, that signed it because he wanted it, that's got 3 years left to go on that contract, and a club that might be prepared to sell him, but not on his terms. Not on the terms that suit him and the purchasing club. Liverpool's valuation, who gives a monkeys what Liverpool's valuation is? He's not Liverpool's player. So it agitates me, not because it's Liverpool, because I think Liverpool are a brilliant football club and I admire them and always have done, but because there's too much of it going on and no one stands up against it and pushes back, and they allow people to get away with murder. And I accept the principles of sometimes it's the easier way to go. But going round there, and first and foremost, why does everybody know this? What is the genuity? If I'm round at that player's house, there'd nobody know about it besides the bleeding player and his agent. And if his agent wanted to flap his gums and leak it into the press, which may be the case, then that's up to him. But they wouldn't know it from my end of the equation. They wouldn't know it as soon as I walked out. I've knocked on his door, and as soon as I've walked out, everyone knows about it. Where's the genuity in that? This should have been attended to by people in authority, in influence, people that can control people's destinies. And that one of them is somebody that runs that football club, whoever it may be, because the player's got a 3-year contract, and he should have had his mind concentrated.
Right. You would have found him by now.
Well, I would have hopefully been in a position where none of this really manifested itself.
Oh, I know, but it has. As far as we gather, the boy hasn't been fined for his conduct.
I would be.
He stays away.
I would be reminding.
He's not
him,
training.
I would be reminding him, if indeed that's the case, if it's indeed the player's, it's only the player's choice. Because don't forget, we're operating through a prism of believing that the player is staying away rather than the club is saying.
But once you don't train with the main squad, the writing's on the wall, isn't it?
It is to some extent, yes. But whoever made that choice, the club would have made that choice. But if the player has refused to attend certain things, who are you to refuse to do something? Who are you? What position do you actually believe that you're in? When it comes down to the real world, what position do you actually really believe you're in that you can do precisely as you want? I'd be concentrating his mind with all kinds of things, peppering, with so many right hands, he'd be begging for a left in terms of the consequences of his behaviour. What are you doing? Do you believe that there's not going to be any ramifications for this? Forget your little Liverpool move and what you think's going to happen over there. Do you not believe that I have a contractual entitlement to make you do your job, and the ramifications of you not doing it will be far more far-reaching than you not swanning off to the football club that you fancy? Those sort of conversations. Do you think the Marinakers didn't have those conversations?
Oh, for sure. Wait, what do Liverpool do, though, Simon, now? Do they facilitate this? I beg your pardon, Newcastle do. Do they facilitate his departure? If Liverpool come back in, say, with 5 or 10 million more, do Newcastle say, right, in the interest of getting something done here, let's accept it?
Well, it depends what values Newcastle think are important. If Newcastle wanted to facilitate a solution, then they could have contacted Liverpool and said, right, this is not an ideal situation for either of us. We accept the fact that you don't want to pay any more than you're prepared to pay for the valuation that you think the player's worth, but let's find a solution before this becomes unedifying, unpalatable, and nobody wins. Let's have a horse trade about maybe we can put a couple of players in. Maybe we can take this player. Maybe we can take Cody Gakpo in exchange if he wants to come. Maybe we can do a bunch of things. But the fact that Newcastle don't appear to have engaged from that perspective and shifted the owners back on Liverpool, if the media-facing perspective is the reality of it all, rather than the behind the scenes machinations that often go on, then Newcastle have left themselves. But the irony of it is Newcastle are doing the same thing to Brentford to some extent. So it happens left, right, and centre.
Sure.
They've decided the valuation of Wissa is XYZ, so they're going to express their interest, unsettle the player, and then decide to only pay what they feel that the player's worth rather than what the selling club's worth. It's ridiculous. Someone knocks on your door, wants to buy your house. He doesn't decide what it's worth.
Yeah.
You decide what it's worth.
Funnily enough, you mentioned Gakpo there. There's Martin listening in Caracas, Venezuela. Wow. Include Gakpo in any deal and get him out of there. That's what he thinks. Second guess this for me, Simon. This time next week, where we're going to be.
I don't know what the conversation.
He can't stay. They can't rehabilitate him.
Of course he can stay. In the same way that people can reintegrate.
Do you think these proud Newcastle United fans in that stadium last night would welcome him back?
Depends what they're sold. I mean, these proud Newcastle fans were running around in Thobes 3 years ago because we had a Middle Eastern consortium buying their football club, irrespective of the background noise as the reason why they might be politically challenged by that particular decision. They weren't. And now these same Newcastle fans are slightly critical of the ownership. So football fans can be sold things and told things, and they'll change their mind.
Well,
they may never love him again. They may never worship him and adore him, but that's a false adoration anyway. It only lasts as long as the player's doing something good for you.
I have a rough idea what you would like to happen. I wonder what Newcastle fans think. You are coming to air with us in huge numbers at the moment. Tommy, first up, Newcastle fan. What would you like to see happen now, Tommy, regards this whole Isak situation?
Morning, gents. I love the show. I listen to it all the time when I'm at work in the van. Great show.
Thanks, Tommy. Tommy, on you go, mate. Right, take centre stage. Tell us.
Yeah, I just wanted to make points on the back of what Simon said. Basically, I fully agree with why didn't he just put in a transfer request? And if I was Eddie Howe, on the point of Eddie Howe and Eddie Howe's knowledge and opinion, he probably doesn't want to continuously speak about the saga of it because it's just negative light and it's taking the shine off what a great club and what a great job the current players who want to be there are doing. If Alex does want to reintegrate or is able to, I would be saying and making it public and putting him in the reserves, making him play and making him earn his position back. We all know he's probably one of the top 10 strikers in the world, but put him through it, make him realise that it's not acceptable. It's not how you conduct business. It's not how you show up for Newcastle United. And I just also want to ask Simon a question, with him being an ex-chairman. Simon, what when you have a contract with a player, what safety net is there for a club with regards to this position? Because we've seen it in the Premier League's history, and it's just, I guess, a Premier League thing, maybe a foreign thing too in the top leagues. I guess I don't have any knowledge of players in lower leagues doing it, but
when you say safety net, you mean what are the consequences and remedy to a player deciding to do what he wants to do? Well, one of them isn't certainly to have any condemnation from their pathetic union, but the reality of it is you have a contract, so the player can huff and puff. It's about what you're prepared to do in the end to provide a solution. It'll be one of two. It'll be either accept the principle and try and rinse as much money out of the transaction as you possibly can and make the buying club pay what you will consider to be a reasonable deal, or have the real courage and the real gumption, as football clubs have done previously, and one proven to be the case recently, despite the protestation of Gibbs White. He was out the door, he wanted to go. And now, of course, Nottingham's all roads lead back to Nottingham because the owner intervened and said, this is not how it operates. There is no safety net. There is only a mechanism to concentrate players' minds by putting them out into the reserve squads, which of course in comes the union saying that denies them sporting chance. They'll pop up then rather than condemn the player's conduct, fining him, or accepting the commercial reality of saying, right, okay, we need to create competitive tension in the conversation, see if we can get another club to buy him and then make the buying club that's unsettled him in the first place pay the price that we want. But to actually concentrate someone's mind and to make them, you can possibly take them into court and do what Chelsea did to Adrian Mutu for different reasons. Mutu broke his contract because of drug taking, breached the contract and got sued for it. And some of that might happen in the future to players if they keep on with this nonsense. But right now, there isn't a one-size-fits-all. That's what happens if you do that.
is Alexander Isak going to end up where he wants to end up, namely Liverpool? Didn't feature last night. We're going to take calls from Newcastle fans this morning as well. 03717 223344. Liverpool got the job done last night in the 100th minute up at St James's Park. What did we see? The vulnerable champions or the defiant champions? 03717 223344. Joe, good morning. Big Liverpool fan. You're first up. What do you want to say?
Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning,
Jim,
Joe.
morning, Simon.
Morning.
First of all, 1974, Wembley, 2-0 Liverpool. Malcolm MacDonald last night sitting in the stand. I've got an empathy for Newcastle. Always have done. Great team, great club, great supporters. I thought they were magnificent as a team. Got away with some decisions. Referee had a good game all around, but it was a very hostile situation. From a Liverpool perspective, as a fan, the football, the determination, the grit, the understanding, the fans were amazing. Really top draw. That's the way we are, but we're better. But on the second point is, let's not forget, lads, we're going through a bereavement at the moment. I'm not going to dwell on it. It takes a long time to lose a member of your family. But Diego Jota, basically, it's going to take time. You can see it with Mo Salah. You see him last week against Bournemouth. It's going to take time for the lads to settle and that guy not be there in the dressing room. So that's the first thing. Give it time. We've got new signings coming in. We need to toughen up on our defence. But the magnitude of, like, bringing on Rio last night, a young 16, come 17 yesterday, that's the future for Liverpool. And I think we've got a good team going forward for the future.
Yeah.
This is Arnie's team now. Jurgen's done a fantastic job. But all great respect, I don't think Newcastle are going to be struggling this season, because if they perform like they did last night, I thought they were tremendous. And
Joe, very good call. Very balanced call as well. Listen, thanks for your time. Here's Matthew, another Liverpool fan. Good morning, Matthew. What did you see in that performance last night, mate?
Morning, lads. Yeah, obviously just echoing that previous fella's call. Newcastle are excellent, but like anything, Liverpool helped them be excellent. And I want to make a point that no one's really raised yet. And what my eyes don't lie to me. I've watched football long enough. I made up Liverpool signed Florian Wirtz, but Liverpool are basically now playing with two players in Wirtz and Salah who do not want to run the other way. That midfield yesterday, the whole balance of that midfield has just disappeared. Obviously, Mr. McAllister, Gravenberch is doing two people's jobs, and you're just playing into their hands. If you look at Newcastle's midfield last night, Linton, Sanali and Bruno. You look at Arsenal's midfield this weekend, Rice, Zubimendi, Odegaard. That wipes the floor with Liverpool's midfield. So Wirtz, I'm great he signed, but the balance of that team is just not there. There's a reason why the midfield is called an engine room. And Liverpool at the moment.
So Matthew, you're showing a certain amount of vulnerability is what you're saying?
Well, they're just wide open.
Yeah.
They're just absolutely wide open. I've watched Liverpool long enough, and I was at the Crystal Palace game in the Charity Shield. And when you look at Liverpool now, you can't win leagues having to score 4 or 5 goals. It's suicide. Listen, I'm bouncing around the ground last night when they scored. It's great. It's buzzing. And there's a part of that, I think, oh my God, this is unbelievable. But then afterward, you can say, hang on a second, this is concerning. You can't be 2-0 up with 10 men. Liverpool carried on playing the same way. They played like a basketball game. They played in camp. The only time Liverpool scored their 2 goals is when they got the foot on the ball and controlled the game, played simple passes, and that got the goals. But when they're playing like that heavy metal clock football, but the balance is not there. The balance in that midfield.
Wow, quite a number of points there. Matthew, I'll put that to John, who's a Liverpool fan as well. John, what do you make of what Matthew was just saying there?
Yeah, morning, gents.
Morning.
I kind of agree. It's not quite there just yet. I think certainly from a defensive point of view, I mean, I remember going to the 2 Atletico games at the start of the season, which were pre-season, and I thought the 2 wing-backs looked reasonably okay. Again, from the first caller, they're still going through a bereavement. There's been a lot of new players that have come in. At this time of the season, it's just purely about getting points on the board. And I think Rio, I'm not pinning all my hopes on him, but he looked great. Doesn't show any fear. For me, I think we need to go out and get Gahey just to shore up the defence a little bit more. And I think in the next 5 or 6 games, it'll start to come together a bit better.
Good stuff, John. Thank you for that. I mean, the fans see everything, Simon,
I thought Mo Salah was a protected characteristic, so he wasn't allowed to be criticised by anybody. I thought if anyone dared poke their head above the parapet and criticise Mo Salah, it was sacrosanct.
Yeah, but I like that. I like what Matthew said in particular. Yeah, I mean, pointing out, yeah, sure, they won.
Sure.
But
yeah,
look at us there, look at us here, look at us there.
Sure.
Far from a finished article, albeit
against 2 good sides. And I don't suppose they were the finished article when they played against Ipswich in the first half of their first game of the season last year under Arne Slot's first game. And of course, don't worry, Liverpool fans, you'll be able to go and unsettle other people's players and take them at your own on your own reconnaissance. You know, whether it be Gahey or Isak.
Simon, you've thrown the odd agent out of your training ground in the past.
Great relish and delight.
Did you ever throw the odd parent out who got a bit too lardy?
No. That would be predominantly that's in the academy setup.
The reason I ask you, and I was surprised when I heard about this. Mark Bellingham, father of Jobe and Jude. Jude, of course, still with Real Madrid, goes into another season. Jobe now of Borussia Dortmund. Mark Bellingham was said to have confronted Borussia Dortmund sporting director Sebastian Kehl in the tunnel after the 3-3 draw with St. Pauli. Security personnel allowed Mark and Denise Bellingham, the parents of Jobe, to enter the area after the game, where the midfielder's dad expressed his disappointment to Kehl that his son was subbed at half-time on what was his Bundesliga debut on Saturday. He also criticised Dortmund's cautious style of play. Now, Dortmund none too happy about Mark and Denise doing that. And they said after the match, we're all disappointed with yesterday's result. And yet, the active area is and remains reserved for players, coaches and management, not families and advisors. That won't happen again, say Borussia Dortmund. We've clearly informed everyone involved with this. I mean, have they stepped over the line here? How involved should football clubs allow parents to be with their players? And we're talking about the highest of high level here.
Depends how much that football club relied on the parent in the first place to influence the son to go and join them. Depends how influential the father is. It's not just a case of being black and white about what people... I would assume, my impression of the Bellingham's father is, despite the fact I've heard certain things about him getting stroppy with journalists when asked about one Bellingham and getting all stroppy about which Bellingham was referring to and being a bit facetious about it. And that might just be protecting his younger son that wasn't getting the starlight that the older one was getting.
Yeah.
He has been, I think, a very strong influence in his lads' direction. He's got 2 lads that are performing for massive football clubs that have been an unadulterated success, and credit to their families. We can question some of the things that Jude has done recently, but then go put yourself in a position where you're 21 years of age, playing for the biggest club in the world, getting paid a fortune, and everyone tells you you're a hero, and see how carried away you might get yourself at times. So it's easy to judge. But I think as a whole, he's done a very good job by his sons. He's produced 2 fabulous footballers that are, as I say, playing at the highest level. He was influential on his son not potentially going to Man United and choosing to go to Dortmund. He probably has a relationship with Dortmund because he must do, because he took his first son there, and I think he was the intellectual capital behind some of it. His second son, well, miraculously has appeared there as well, so I'm assuming he's had some influence in that as well. So I assume, unless he's turned into a prima donna overnight, that he had some degree of acceptance of being in that environment previously, and maybe they've changed the policy. So with all that in mind, to characterise it as saying how much influence should a parent have over a professional footballer's career, well, in a big game, none really, and of course, but the way we're characterising it is if this guy's just chopped liver, he's just a parent that shouldn't be involved. This is a father that was involved with both his sons joining this football club, and it happens to be one of his sons is the best footballer in the world, or arguably one of the best footballers in the world.
Yeah.
And his second son has just made a massive move from another football club to another significant German club. So I think we've got to give this a bit more context.
I get that, but I mean, at the same time, you heard the quote from Dortmund, none too happy about the appearance in the tunnel.
Well, again, I would ask the question, is the father getting ahead of himself? Has he become a difficult animal to deal with? Has he got carried away and drunk on the success of his own sons?
But up until now,
like
you're
Neymar
quite happy
Senior
with
did.
it. Well, this is it. You're not having Bellingham Senior. Or you are having Bellingham Senior, but you're not having Neymar.
I'm not. I'm watching Neymar Senior trade off his son's currency. Saw it for myself in Qatar. I'm not sure this is the same thing. No, he may well be. It may well be the same thing. It may well be that Mark Bellingham has turned from an ex-police officer into a prima donna overnight, and suddenly expects to have his backside wiped when he walks into an environment that ultimately he shouldn't be in the first place, and express his opinions. And everyone's got to listen to it. If that's the case, then he should be condemned, and he should be told and put in his place, which they've just done. If it isn't the case, then we are amping up a story that is based upon a guy that's clearly influential. This is not an errant parent running his mouth.
Oh, no.
This is a parent that's been influential. That's
Yeah.
been influential in his boy's career, and Dortmund have been the beneficiaries of both of those players landing there. And I suspect if Mark Bellingham had said to his sons, whispered in their ear, I don't think so, they wouldn't have been at that football club. So I think whilst I don't like to make dispensation for him and give him latitude when perhaps he doesn't merit it, and maybe he is getting carried away, and I don't think a parent or an advisor should be in the air of a sporting director.
Yeah.
Because players get picked and chosen at the bequest of a manager, and that's the end of the conversation.
Well, apparently,
what's going to happen next is did Mark Bellingham, Jude Bellingham, say to the sporting director, "My dad's bigger than yours"?
Yeah, I mean, apparently, he also criticised Dortmund's cautious style of play. It was 3-3. Anyway, who knows?
Well, that makes no sense, doesn't it?
No.
So that doesn't. So if you're suggesting their cautious brand of play brings out a 3-3 draw, then that makes no sense. Which means that you start to look at the credibility of the source that's saying that Mark Bellingham is a bit of a pest.
Now, Nottingham Forest go to Simon's Old Club, Crystal Palace, on Sunday. It was a 2:00 kickoff, and they end up getting a 1-1 draw. Callum Hudson-Odoi cancelled out Ismaila Sarr's earlier strike. 1-1. The spoils were shared. But, of course, that glosses over what actually was going on at Forest in the build-up to this game. In the build-up to the match, Nuno Espírito Santo came out and somewhat surprised a whole bunch of people when he suggested that he and the owner, Evangelos Marinakis, weren't that close these days. In fact, hardly close at all.
I always had a very good relationship with the owner. Last season was very, very, very close, almost daily basis. This season, not so well. But I always believe that dialogue and what you say or your opinion is always valid, because my concern is the squad and the season that we have ahead of us. But our relations has changed.
It's changed?
Yeah, it's not so close. It's not on a daily basis. So, yeah.
Is that a good thing, though? Or?
No, it's not good. It's not good. I think everybody at the club should be together, but it's not the reality.
So that well and truly set the hair running. There were suggestions of tension around recruitment for Nuno. Edu, we remember him, the Brazilian who was in previously at Arsenal. He was appointed as Forest's global head of football earlier this summer and has taken control over the club's recruitment operation. So it begged the question, what was it down to? Was it Edu? Was it his arrival? What was going on behind the scenes? After the match, which I said was drawn 1-1, Nuno continued with his rhetoric. He was asked, was he feeling marginalised by this man, Edu?
I cannot answer that question. But what I know is that I'm working and trying to do my job the best that I can. Of course, the situation has to be solved. What comes out, what comes out, the sacking, also, you cannot control that. What I said is, and I had a long thought about it, is my concern for the squad. These boys last season achieved something fantastic. If we as a club, we don't help them in terms of numbers, in terms of quality and talented, everything will go. So we have what we have ahead of us is Premier League, Europa League, Carabao Cup and FA Cup. You know how many games this means for us. This is the respect that we have to show to our squad.
So just to emphasise, he was being asked there, was he confident he would still be the Forest head coach at the end of the transfer window? And as you heard him say, he said, I cannot answer that question. What I know is that I'm working and trying to do my job the best I can, but of course, this situation has to be solved. Will you be there at the end of the window? I cannot answer that question. What is your take on all of this?
Well, in theory, he can't, can he? Because he doesn't employ himself. He's employed by someone else, so he doesn't control his own destiny.
Yeah. I mean, just for the record, this morning, and I'm just looking back on the messages that I get, and I'm hearing no change. Everyone's calm and everyone's normal at Nottingham Forest.
I don't think there will be any change. I think this, I think it's. I feel like it's an unwise thing for him to say, but I think that's a stock in trade for this fellow. I think he's quite a politically motivated person. I don't mean in terms of which political party he votes for. I mean in terms of how he plays his chips and how he orchestrates all ends against the middle. Because he will be considered by Nottingham Forest fans as an absolute revolution for them, or revelation, not revolution, in terms of the performances last year, the way the team has been playing, and how good they were in their first game of the season against Brentford. And so his currency is relatively high. Playing that card in the media, I would imagine it is all inextricably indexed to the relationship that Marinakis wants Edu to perform, which is he wants Edu to run the football operation, and this fellow doesn't like it. He's used to having a relationship with Marinakis, which is direct to the owner, which is wonderful. But that's not his gift to determine how Marinakis wants his club run. It's his gift to determine if he wants to work within that framework, i.e., the manager. He can say, I don't fancy this, I want to go.
I mean, at the end of the day, are all these guys, no matter who you are, at what level you operate, all of them are answerable to the owner?
Well, of course. And that's why it's slightly unwise, because Marinakis will have one or two reactions. He'll either respect him as a result of the fact he's got the balls to say that he thinks, or he think he's stupid for doing it and mark his cards for when there's a downturn. Because you're all right as a manager when you're doing all right. What you need is the currency of credibility of results or historic relationships with your owner that are based upon everyone working together, even in moments when you don't quite like what's being said, to keep you safe from circumstances when things aren't going your way. So often managers are not bright enough to realise that, because they're too carried away with their own importance. Now, he is obviously not happy with something. To me, I don't think there's a necessity, besides sitting on a talk show, to tell people things they don't necessarily need to know. Because what benefit do you gain from it? He is imparting wisdom to people. There doesn't seem to be a reason for that conversation. It doesn't seem to be that he was being provoked in that direction. He seems to have volunteered that information. He seems to have just announced it with no particular poking away at the situation. It may have been about the transfer window. It may be the journalist was going, are you happy with the transfer situation? So he then uses that as a platform to build his little crusade on. And his crusade is, I want more money for the playing squad. One thing you cannot accuse Marinakis of is not being prepared to invest in this team, in this football club, and believe in the principles of what he wants to achieve the football club, because he's the one that's told everyone what they've got to do. I'm not sure it's wise to do what Nuno Espírito Santo has done, but he'll reap the benefits or the disadvantages of it either which way. But I would imagine if you try to put yourself in the situation, it has to be around Edu. It has to be around the job that Marinakis has asked Edu to do. So what if your owner doesn't speak to you every single day? So what? And this idea that you speak to him every single day is nonsense anyway. You speak to him in passing. If you walk past one another in the corridor and say hello, it's not the same as having a conversation, is it?
No, but he said, we used to have a decent relationship. It was quite a close relationship. And that had changed. On the build-up to his pre-match news conference before the game against Palace, it was being suggested, listen, your relationship with Marinakis seems to be somewhat fractured.
Well, why would they think that?
Is there any truth in that?
Yeah, but where would that have come from in the first place?
Because there was talk in other journalistic circles. There was talk that Marinakis had possibly had a conversation with Ange Postecoglou.
Ah, well, okay. Maybe that's provided a reaction. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. I can't really see what you would do. I mean, from the outside looking in, there's not a lot wrong with Nottingham Forest, is there? From the outside looking in, there's not a lot wrong.
You would think not.
When I took them for relegation last year, I couldn't have got it any more wrong, could I? So there doesn't, to me, Nuno Espírito Santo has produced a team that's worth watching. He's got the very best from the players. He's exacted every last ounce of perspiration and inspiration from that group of players, which is precisely what you want from your coach. You've had the background noise of Marinakis causing various controversies that the manager has never spoken out, never said anything derisory about, always towed the line.
Yeah.
And now he's not. And it must be to do with transfers. It must be to do with the introduction of another component part, which is Edu, which probably is what Marinakis wants. He wants somebody to do with the day-to-day running of the football operation and the recruitment policies, and probably what Nuno is hearing is something he don't like. He doesn't like the fact that there's an interface. He likes the relationship he had previously. Now, that's great, and he should say it to Marinakis. I'm not sure he should say it in the public domain.
Well, that's right. But what he's not quite saying is back me or sack me, is he?
No, he's
Not really.
He's not saying that.
Having said that, though, and we heard it there when he was asked.
Surely, I don't think it's at that point.
When he was asked post-match at Palace, you think he'll be around at the end of the transfer window? I can't answer that question.
He can't, can he? Because he's not the employer.
Yeah, but why not come in with, you bet I'll be around?
Because he's not the person.
What are you hearing that I'm not hearing?
Because he's not in he's not in that frame of mind. He's already told you the frame of mind he's in. He's told you that he feels a little disconnected from the owner. He doesn't quite have the same relationship. So if he wanted to row back from that, he could have said, "Of course, I'm going to be here."
Do you think, looking at Nuno and listening to him over quite a period of time now, is he the sort of guy, or is he not the sort of guy that you could have worked with?
I don't know. I hear mixed reports about him, not having a huge amount of first-hand experience of him, just a very small amount. I think he's a very capable manager. I think he was the wrong peg in the wrong hole for Tottenham Hotspur. I think people got a bit fed up with him at Wolves in the end. And he runs off to the Middle East to get some money, comes back. Nothing wrong with that, but people talk about careers and motivations and directions of travel and what your real motivation is. And if your real motivation is money, that's fine, nothing wrong with that. But we're talking about supposedly football managers that are supposed to want to be the best in class. And by going to Saudi, that's not the best in class, is it? That's the best in bank account. And so with that in mind, but you cannot argue against the body of work. The body of work they did for Nottingham Forest.
His currency must be high.
Besides, they swallowed it at the end. Right, and gave the opportunity away to qualify to Europa League of their own volition, rather than standing on the shoulders of giants. I think he's a very capable, and you look at the performances he's got from that team last year. Look at the endeavour. Look at the commitment, and look at the results when they even got battered up by Bournemouth or whoever it was. They got done by Brighton, didn't they? Or someone. They got done by Bournemouth, didn't they? And they put someone else to the sword because they got themselves together. But I don't think that's wise. I think that's a conversation you have to bide your time. And you have to have it with your owner when you get an opportunity. Do it in the media, I think is either ballsy because you know what the outcome's likely to be and you think you can leverage it into a better situation with your owner, or stupid and you'll suffer the consequences of it, and stupid and arrogant and full of your own importance. Because Marinakis strikes me as somebody you don't muck about with too much.
No, as in at all.
You've got to have a right. I mean, he's not. These people aren't. He's supposed to be a football manager. He's supposed to have strong character. Nothing wrong with pushing back. Nothing wrong with you want people that have got strong characters. Otherwise, what have you got? But when you start making stuff available in the public domain, you're doing it because you're either Machiavellian, you're trying to achieve an outcome, you're disrespectful, or you believe it's the right way to go. And I think with someone like Marinakis, it could be something that serves up Nuno Espírito Santo at a time when he's at his weakest, when he needs the owner's support. He might find that little antics like this don't serve him well.
Okay, we'll see. The word coming out of Forest, though, that I'm getting is no change. Everyone's calm.